So I'm a really positive person. So if I act a little weird while I'm talking about this, it's because I'm not used to talking about being sad a lot or like things that aren't having positive because that's just not my normal personality. So if this movie freaks you out a little bit because it's not what you're used to, I'm sorry. It freaked me out at the time too, just because what I'm about to tell you was just such a complete turnaround from who I've been my whole life and who I feel like I really am. But I feel like that this video will matter to people, and especially to people who maybe really identify and don't know that they can talk to anybody else. So hopefully by me being honest and being able to share a part of my life that like sucked, you'll feel a little comfortable sharing something like that with someone else. So, here we go. So this all started about 2 years ago to this month, actually, because just before spring break of 2012, so yeah, 2 years ago, because spring break is in March, I just started noticing that I was feeling really weird, and I don't really know how else to describe it except that like I was really tired, and I started to notice that things that I normally was enjoying, and so like at the time I was being an RA, and I loved being an RA, and I was really invested in it and spent lots of time like with residents and my staff and events and whatever, but I started to notice that those things were making me really tired, and just like that I didn't enjoy them the same way, but I figured that it was a normal thing, you know, sometimes you just get bored and tired of your routine, so like I didn't really pay attention to it. And then spring break in March happened, and then when I came back from that, I just remember thinking that I was more tired than I should have been, and like usually, like I said, I'm really positive, so usually I'm only down about something for like maybe a week at max, and then I just kind of pull it together and like reframe and like re-go at things, but it just wasn't happening. And then in April 7th actually, so 2 months after I started to notice that I was feeling weird, I started to notice at the beginning of April that I felt really sad, and I don't get sad, and if I'm sad I know why, or I can figure out why, but I couldn't figure out why I was sad. And I remember thinking, how do I stop being sad? And I didn't know, but I still just was assuming like I would get over it. But anyway, April 7th rolled around, and it's a cool story how this all fits together, but that's for something completely different, probably like a face-to-face conversation if you want to hear the real story. But one of my residents tried to commit suicide, and by what I can only assume was God's divine intervention, I was not even supposed to be in Lincoln that night, but somehow I wound up there and on duty, and I knew the background of this and whatever. I knew it was kind of going on with this girl, and so one thing led to another, and I ended up keying in with my partner who I was on duty with and finding her after she had tried to kill herself. And what I remember thinking in that situation being really weird was seeing this girl unconscious and thinking, I don't want to wake you up because I understand what it feels like to go to sleep and not want to wake back up. And I remember that being a pivotal point, because never at any point in my life before could I remember thinking something like that and really, really meaning it, because I was just so tired of being sad and I didn't know what to do. But I remember thinking when I thought that, wow, that was a really weird thing to think, but like took care of the situation, whatever. That passed, and I wasn't getting happier. Like I was still really sad, and then I started spending a lot of time crying. And if you've ever met me or spent like fair amounts of time with me, I don't cry. Like, I don't know if that's like a girl thing where you have a good cry fairly often. I don't do that. Like, I don't cry, I don't tear up. I don't know. Just don't. And I was spending not just like, I wasn't just having a good cry. I was in my room crying for like 6 hours in a row. Like hours and hours and hours. Just like messy, crying, sobbing. And I didn't know why. And it was freaking me out because this was not me. What was going on? And like I couldn't function like I used to. Like I remember trying to do things like go to events that I was planning for my floor, or like staff meetings or hanging out with my friends, and anything that normally would like energize me, so like hanging out with people, talking, making friends, things that I normally really loved, would drain me. And I could handle maybe like 15 minutes of being around people, and then I was just like so tired, just like soul tired. And I would just go back to my room, and just as soon as I walked in the door, I would just like crumple and just cry. And I didn't know why. But I made it through the rest of the semester. And then summer of 2012, I was a conference assistant, so I was living at that direction. You can't see it, doesn't matter. But I was living at the university. And I was getting away with feeling this bad because I was working a desk job by myself, so like I could just sit and stare at my computer screen, and it really wasn't a big deal. And then on May 26th, I know this because I have these things written down because these were big deals. May 26th, I was going to go home and visit my parents, and I didn't get to go home very often because I was an RA and you only get so many nights away, blah, blah, blah. But I remember the night before thinking how excited I was to get to go home, and like for the first time feeling a little excitement and enthusiasm for something. And then in the morning, I remember trying to get up, and it took me 2 hours just to like get myself out of bed, and another hour or so to pack like an overnight bag and like get my stuff out to my car. And I remember thinking how heavy my pillow was, and just that I felt weird. And like I was driving and I was leaving Lincoln and just thinking, I feel so weird. And I couldn't really figure out why. And then, okay, this story is a little bit weird, and I'm sorry if this freaks you out, but this is the way that it was. I'm just not withholding any details. So I'm leaving Lincoln, and I'm halfway to Seward. And I remember thinking, like, I feel weirdly disconnected from myself. Like, if you're playing a video game and, you move the person, you're connected, but it's like in a weird, disjointed kind of way. And I remember feeling kind of like that. And then I remember thinking, I know that I have like a tension knot in my shoulder. Bear with me, I know this is weird. And so like I reached back and I was like trying to knead it out, and then I was like, this is weird because I know the knot is there, but I can't feel it. So like then I kind of noticed that I couldn't feel like this. Like I couldn't feel my hand touching my skin. I could not feel contact. And I remember something in my brain was freaking out, like something is wrong, but the rational part of my brain was like, okay, you're just overreacting, being a little bit dramatic. And I remember I was wearing a dress. I remember I was wearing a dress and thinking, where is someplace that beyond a shadow of a doubt feels? And I was like, oh, well, your like inner, like your leg, so like your upper thigh. I was like, I know that is, you can feel that. There should be feeling there. And so like I wind up and I'm like cringing because I know this is gonna hurt, and then I just like slap my leg really hard because I don't know, I was freaking out, and I didn't feel anything. And at that point, I think I might have been hyperventilating a little bit because I was like, this is freaking me out. And so anyway, as the story goes, I slapped myself probably like 13 or 14 times really hard before I even felt like a little bit of pain. And like, I remember looking down and I could see like a raised handprint from my hand, and knowing that like I had hurt myself but I couldn't feel it. And I looked up and there was a car coming. So I'm driving and I see this car coming, and I just look at it and I remember thinking, if I can't feel, I cannot do this. I can't do this. And I remember for the first time in my life thinking, I understand wanting to swerve and hit that car so I don't have to do this anymore. So I didn't, because I knew there were other people in that car. And I kept going, and I went home, and I didn't want to be around my family, and I went outside, and my dad found me up like on the deck of the barn or whatever, and I pretty sure I just fell apart, and I was like, look at my leg, and there was like a bruise from my hand. And I think that's when all of us were like, okay, something is drastically wrong, something that I can't fix. And so that was the start. That was the beginning. And since this is getting really long, I'm going to split it into a couple videos so you can get coffee or whatever. So, part 1.